We are fast approaching the midway point of the month of July in the summer of 2023. It is July 13th already. Recently, an article by Pastor Simon van Bruchem, a pastor from Australia, was very interesting. And oftentimes there are some themes that keep coming back in the Calvary briefings. And these themes are dear to my heart, and these themes challenge me constantly. And Van Bruchem wrote this article about the fact that evangelism seems to be missing in the Western countries. In the Eastern countries of the world that we live in, Christianity is spreading rapidly, but in the West, somewhat stagnant. And this article goes back to one of the basic truths of the Bible that we know as followers of Jesus. Most of us have heard the gospel, and we've understood John 14:6. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through Him. When we understand that and we accept it, we look at the world around us differently. And as we see people near to us, and as we see people that we know in our sphere of influence, we understand that if they don't have what we have, they are in deep trouble. Paul put it like this in the book of Romans: "For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. How then will they call on Him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in Him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news." People need to come to trust in Christ. And for that to happen, someone needs to tell them about Jesus. And this is how God has designed it. This is God's intention, that every Christian, every believer would be ready to tell those in their world all about who Jesus is and what He means to them. Van Bruchem wrote down some things that he thought were reasons as to why we struggle in evangelism. And I just wanted to share those with you today. First of all, Van Bruchem says, we think too individualistically. We are able to isolate ourselves. We don't even need to go into the grocery store anymore to get our groceries. We can order things online. We don't have to go out to a movie theater to see a movie we love. We can stream it at home. We can just live by ourselves, unto ourselves. And Van Bruchem says in the East, many people don't have that luxury. They are living with people. They rub shoulders with people much more. The individual way of thinking that's a part of our culture can lead us to fail to see the urgency in the lives of friends for Jesus Christ. Secondly, we can have a poor view of predestination. The doctrine of predestination is oftentimes debated and is very difficult, but it's hard to ignore when we look at passages like Ephesians 1:4, that God chooses people from before the foundation of the world. Some people take that and then jump to a wrong conclusion that, well, God saves people, I don't have to do anything. That's His business. But understanding predestination means that God not only ordains the end, but He ordains the means of getting to the end. And so the doctrine of predestination, that God chooses people, should actually give us much more confidence as we share the gospel, that God has gone ahead of us in that whole process. A third area that impacts all of us is that people may think you strange if you talk about Jesus. Just a fact. There's no denying it. That's been the way that it has been in the world for centuries. When we see people who are passionately speaking about Jesus, we see that they are oftentimes ridiculed. We see people speaking about what they are passionate about, however. People are passionate about sports, about the news, about diets, about politics. We need to be prepared to be out of step with the world because we share the good news of Jesus. A fourth reason that we are hesitant to share with others is that we convince ourselves that it won't work. Well, all you have to do is go out and try, and you will see that it does work. It does work to let people know what is going on inside of you, to let people know about what works for you. Not everybody stands in line to talk to you about what it means to follow Jesus, but you will find success as you share the good news of the gospel. You will at least have wonderful opportunities to plant gospel seeds that can be used later in that person's life. The last reason, and I think this might be the biggest for many of us, we think that it's the job of gifted evangelists, and we're not one of those. Now, there's no doubt that there were people, even in the New Testament, who seemed to be more gifted at sharing their faith, sharing about who Jesus was, and bringing people to the time that they would turn their hearts to Jesus and start to follow him. But it's interesting to even look at the case of the Metropolitan Tabernacle in London, England. Charles Spurgeon was known as a great preacher and a great evangelist. And yet, when you go through the church records of the 1880s and the 1890s, as thousands of people joined Spurgeon's church, it was significant to note that very few of them came to know Jesus because of Spurgeon. Most of them came to know Jesus through the witness of people in the church itself. Normal, everyday people like you and me. Maybe this talk about evangelism makes you feel guilty. Well, don't turn off this briefing. Don't just ignore it. It makes me feel guilty too. Don't just leave it. We should do something. Here are the closing words of Pastor von Bruchem. Start small. Pray for God to give you opportunities to talk about Jesus. Pray for one specific friend, one specific family member. You will be amazed how God answers prayers like these. People need Jesus. Let's look for opportunities to show them where true hope and meaning and salvation can be found.